one of the crucial, interesting things that come about, that we can note here is that unlike most books, there are most books, unlike most text, the Bhagavad Gita is not linear. We just saw that, okay? It just goes up and down. Some ideas are scattered over several chapters, and some ideas are constantly repeated again and again in different contexts, sometime in the same context sometime. And a few ideas, they presuppose that we have some knowledge which that idea is referring to. Either we have got that knowledge in the Bhagavad Gita itself, or we could have got that knowledge somewhere else. But there is no point that where Bhagavad Gita refers to something which Bhagavad Gita is not talked about. It does not presuppose anything that it has already not covered. So some ideas are scattered all over, some ideas are repeated, some ideas assume that you already know something else. So this is the kind of, it is pretty dynamic. So it is very important for us as sadhakas, as seekers, to pay complete attention, number one. And not only pay complete attention, it is important to revise. We have to go back and read it again. That is when we will be able to connect. Otherwise, if we just do it once, it will be all over the place. To some it may make sense, to some it may not make sense. To some it may make sense sometime, but not all the time. So it is very, very important, one, to be attentive, to immerse, like we said, like the Federer-Nadal exercise, and two, to go back and do it again. The word usage in Bhagavad Gita is also contextual. For example, Sankhya can be used to refer to analysis, or it can be used to refer to Upanishads. So when it is referring to Upanishad, if you think analysis, you will get a wrong meaning. That is why, remember, when I started off, we said, let's create a Sanskrit-English dictionary. If we can create that dictionary and follow it, it will be very useful. That will then help you ensure that we relate to the right context at the right time. Another example is Atma. Atma can either mean mind, intellect, or it can mean soul. Sometimes the soul is referred to as Atma, sometimes the soul is referred to as Purusha. Purusha can mean soul, or Purusha can also mean man, person, human being. So there is intermixing in terms of the usage of words, in terms of what they mean. It is important to understand and know that. Another interesting exercise that we can do is after completion of all the 18 chapters, is to read it thematically. See, because I said it doesn't follow a linear thought process, it is all over the place. It will be very interesting once we finish to say, let's take, one of the thematic concepts that we talked about. For example, Vidvat Sannyasa, and see which are the verses that refer to Vidvat Sannyasa. Let us take Satvika Shraddha and see which are the verses that refer to Satvika Shraddha. So that will be a very, very interesting example to do once we complete all 18 chapters. The first exercise, if you remember, was to see that chapter 2, the verses of chapter 2, what are the elaborations of those in the future of Bhagavad Gita. That is the first exercise that we talked about. So essentially, like I said earlier, chapter 2 has the seed for whatever is going to come in the future. For example, the seed for Karma Yoga, which we are going to start today, verse 2.48, Yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. That is the seed, samatvam yoga uchyate, seed to Karma Yoga. The seed for Vividisha Sannyasa is Vihaya kamanyas sarvan umamscharati nisparaha nirmamo nirahankaraha sashantimadi gacchati. This is verse 71 of chapter 2, Vividisha Sannyasa. The seed for Bhakti. This is often missed because while Karma Yoga, Vividisha Sannyasa, Sthita Pragya, there are multiple verses that touch upon this in chapter 2. Bhakti, there is only one verse. And then there are 7 to 12, 5 chapters or 6 chapters later on. The seed for Bhakti, 61, verse 61. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha vashe hiyasendriyani tasya pragya pratishtita matparaha. devoted in me, mind completely in me, that part. Another crucial part or point about the Bhagavad Gita that we must keep in context, remember, as we go about from chapter 3 onwards, is the definition of sannyasa. Very interesting. And the two types of sannyasa. Okay, sannyasa is defined as, of course, it is renunciation. One aspect of sannyasa is renunciation, but sannyasa is immersion in a total, complete, non-stop, dedicated pursuit. And when you do that, you renounce something else that you would have otherwise done. That is the definition of sannyasa. And the two types of sannyasa are Vividisha sannyasa and Vidvat sannyasa. Vividisha sannyasa pertains to the seeker stage, who has a desire for knowing, the sadhaka avastha. The sadhaka is focused on Shravana and Manana and Nididhyasana. When you are doing these three, that means that person is a Vividisha sannyasi. And Vidvat sannyasa is the knower stage, Siddha avastha, person who already knows. And the Siddha is focused on Samadhi abhyasa. These are things that we should keep in mind. Now, let's move forward. A clear instruction that Bhagavan gives to Arjuna in chapter 2 is that he should perform Karma Yoga. In fact, Bhagavan tells Arjuna that you are only eligible for Karma Yoga. Verse 31, he says, Dharmyadi yuddha shreyonyat, which means for a soldier, nothing is higher than a righteous war. Dharmyadi, for dharma, yuddha shreyonyat. Shreya, what is Shreya? This righteous war for a soldier. Verse 47, he talks about karmanyevadikaraste. Your eligibility is only in action. Verse 48, yogastat kuru karmani. Perform your action steadfast in yoga. So again and again and again, Arjuna, please perform your karma yoga. Arjuna, please perform your karma yoga. That is what he says. And while he is encouraging, while he is urging Arjuna to do that multiple times, at the same time, he also keeps praising the state of being stable in wisdom. That's Sthita Pragya. So in verse 46, he says, Tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanyasya vijanatah. So for such person, a person who has attained stability in wisdom, whatever is in the Vedas and more than that is available. What a big glorious statement. Then he says in verse 55, he says, Atman yevatmana tushtaha, satisfied in self, only in the self. That is the person who has attained, who has steady wisdom. And verse 72, Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha. That state of Brahman, having obtained that, you get Brahma Nirvana Mrichati. So, one time he is telling Arjuna, do Karma Yoga. The other side he is telling, oh, this is so beautiful. The state of being stable in wisdom. That is the ultimate. So, asking Arjuna to perform Karma Yoga while all the time glorifying the state of Sthita Pragya. It's like once my son came to me very angrily, Daddy, please stop asking me to study. And I was like, what's wrong with him? And I said, no, beta, you have your exam coming up, so you got to study. You have to, put in that effort because your exams are coming up. His rebuttal shut me up. He said, if I have to study, why do you keep constantly reminiscing about our last vacation, the holiday that we had, all the wonderful times that we had? You keep talking about that and my mind is going there. I'm not able to focus on studies. It's like Krishna saying, glorifying, praising Sthita Pragya, the state of absolute steadfast wisdom, and telling Arjuna, do Karma Yoga. So that leads to Arjuna asking his second question. With that, we will start chapter 3.